Alright, so this is my first retouch video. I'm going to do this for Pete Coco. Um, the initial thing he wanted to do was try to remove these lines, which I suggested just lightening up. And that's just coming from my philosophy on retouching, where I try to do more natural versus flawless. So once my image is in Capture One, first thing I'll double check, is my white balance, which I usually set that when I'm shooting, and then I will check my sharpness, which this is at 180, which is the Canon default. I bring that down to 100. And then on my levels, I just hit the auto button and see what it does. Um, Usually on the high key, it doesn't really do too much. I mean, you can see a little bit there. That just kind of gives a little pop of contrast, which, it's probably more subjective than anything. Um, and then I will bring it right over to Photoshop. And it doesn't pop up in Photoshop because Capture One likes to act funky sometimes. All right, so here we are in Capture One, or Photoshop. So the first thing I do on my headshots is I remove these backgrounds, and I've set up actions that I use. Here's kind of like a list of all the different actions I commonly use, and I set up shortcuts on these. So I've got my feather and fill, which I use to remove my lights, and then I've got a couple color grade go-to. On all my portrait work, I tend to at least start with a particular palette on my color grading. And then I've got my dodge and burn action, I've got my frequency separation action, and then I've got a portraiture action using a plugin, which I don't really use portraiture as much anymore, but the action creates layers that I use for my retouching. So I'll get into that for a second, or in a second. Um, so I'm going to show you how to do this manually. So you'll want to take your lasso tool and you'll want to make a selection. Just go all the way around until you get your dancing ants, and then you'll want to feather it, which I'm usually at like between 3 and 5. So this is at 5. So I'm going to hit feather, and then I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to go to fill, content aware, hit OK, and then boom, and then hit deselect. So, but with my actions here, I have shortcuts set up. So, and they're shortcuts on my Wacom tablet. So I'm going to do my selection. Then I've got that action built. So you see right here on my Wacom tablet, I hit that button, and then boom. So that saves me a lot of time right there. That's like a huge time saver. So once I'm done with that, I will go to my portraiture action, and I run that. This is where I used to use portraiture a lot, but I've gotten away from it quite a bit. I might use it here and there in moderation, but that layer hardly ever gets touched. So I've got two layers. I've got one for cloning and one for healing. If you're going to do heavy retouching, I think it's good practice just to have those two separate layers. For headshots, since it's minimal, I usually just do my retouching on my healing layer. So I'll just go in and start cleaning up what catches my attention using the healing brush. I'll just remove the hair. And, if there's some skin imperfections, I'll do that. And the trick is, so when you're retouching, you want to kind of go with the texture of the skin. So like if I was a sample here and then just start going up, it's not always going to look right. Versus, you know, how this skin, they're kind of going, the skin lines are kind of going like that. So I'll try to retouch with the way the skin texture is going. So you want to get all that, get that. And this is just me. It's usually what I do. Others might not do it. I'm picky about certain things, and I try to get some stray hairs out. So, and then I get rid of the necklines. If they're light, if they're heavy, I will soften them so that it still looks realistic. Here we go. Get rid of dog hair. All right. This is actually not much retouching. So what I am going to do, though, I'm going to go into frequency separation for two things, because I feel like on your image you've missed your light convergence a little bit right there. So I can use frequency separation to try to correct that. And then also I'm going to show you how to lighten these lines while retaining detail. So after I get done with my portraiture layer, I will make a copy layer, and then I'm going to hit my frequency separation, which is another action right here. And then I'm going to delete these two layers. So that's going to save memory. So now I've got my low frequency, my high frequency. High frequency is texture, low frequency is the color. And then I've got an extra layer up here for miscellaneous stuff. If I just want to hit something real quick and not really get into the texture color, I'll hit it there. And then this is a blank layer, which I think I picked up from Julia Kuzmenko's retouching. She puts like a layer in between these, which is just kind of not, it's like doing the non-destructive thing, so you're not messing up your color layer. So since these lines here are actually texture, you'll want to work on these two layers. And you can do it a couple ways. You can use your brush tool, and you'll want to have a low opacity or a high opacity around 80% and then a flow around 30. And then what you can do is sample your colors and just kind of paint it in a little bit. And you can see how it starts to line it up a little bit. So that's one method. And then I'll try to even out this skin tone right here. Get rid of some of this red. And so what you do when you're using your color, or when you're using the color layer, you'll want to grab samples of skin tones in the surrounding area. So like you don't want to come over here and then sample over here. So I try to, like, since I kind of want to lighten this up altogether, I'll find a light spot right there. I'll just kind of paint over it slightly. So what it does is it lightens it up with color, but you're still retaining the detail of the skin texture. So over here, you know, I'll lighten up her nose a little bit right there. A little spot here. I'll get rid of that. And then if you hit Alt or Option, tap this bottom layer, it toggles the other stuff, these other layers. So you can kind of see, you know, what you've done so far. So, and then, so there's like, it looks like skin or maybe makeup right there. So then you want to go to your high frequency and you want to change your, for the sample, you want to do current layer. And make sure you do current layer, because if you do current and below, it looks all crappy. It does that funky stuff. So make sure you do current layer. See, it cleans up the texture. Boom. But you still got your skin tones. Those are still intact. So do that, do that. Lipstick line looks okay. I'll probably get rid of that. Let's see. And then I'm gonna get rid of these little hangers right here. They don't want to be, you don't want those to be seen. So I'll just get rid of those. Clean that up. All right. Then up here, you'll want to see how it's like her skin is light right here, but over here it's kind of red. There's a couple different ways you could take the red out. Ryan has the hulking it up video. I've seen where you go to selective color and move the cyan. Since this frequency separation right here is my go-to, and I already have it set up, I usually just I'll paint the color back in to how I want it. So you don't want to paint it. You still want to, how do I put this? You don't want to sample this color and totally paint in the forehead, because you've got your light fall off, which brings depth to the person's face. So you naturally got shadows there. So you don't want to lighten it up too much. You want to have that shadow or that light fall off still. If it does get too light, you could always burn it back down. I'll show you how to do that here in a second. So right here, I can see a definitive line between the white and the red. So I'm gonna go in and smooth that out. I'm gonna work on this cheek a little bit, get some of that pink out. And my brush too, so I'm using a soft brush. Like the hardness of it is like at a 1. So, and a quick little tip too, if you hold down Control and Alt or Option and drag left or right, you increase your size, and then up and down increases the hardness. So if you want like a really hard edge brush, you can go down, and to bring it up, it takes the hardness away. So and there's a little bit of red here, so I'm gonna get rid of that. And if it's a bigger area, you want to get your brush size about this, you know, to complement the area you're going to be painting in. Like you don't want to paint this whole little area in, because then it's going to look funky. So just kind of show you what we've done so far. So that was straight out of camera, and that's just with a slight retouch. So, and so I'll probably darken this area a little bit. just to make her face pop. All right. And then she's got some dark shadows here. So I don't want to Photoshop those out because I want to keep that skin texture. So I'm going to try and just even out the skin tones. So if you see that the texture's still there, but the dark circles are gone. Same thing over here. Lighten that up a little bit. Do a check on my work. All right. So to lighten up these lines, I showed you how to do the painting with the color. What you can also do is come up here to the high frequency layer and use your clone brush, your clone tool. And you're going to sample the texture below it. And then you're going to paint over it. So you want to find where there's not a wrinkle. And again, so I'm still taking skin texture, so it's replacing it with another type of texture, if you will. See? It's before, after. So I think this is crucial for headshots. If this was like beauty or flawless retouching, you know, you would go further and try to, you know, get rid of that more, but I don't think that's the right path for headshots. So on this side, kind of just grab where there's not a whole lot of lines as far as the texture and just kind of paint it in. So you're essentially bringing youth back into these areas. That's before, after. And then, let's see, I'll probably work on this color a little bit more. All right, so that's good. Those are still kind of prominent right there, so I'm going to work on these a bit more. So, all right, before, after. And when you're retouching, a good practice is to like zoom all the way out, zoom all the way in. You can pick up different things at different levels of that you're zooming in. So work on this back some more, back on the color layer. So a little darkness there. Boom. All right, so now, let's see. Just a little bit more color. Balance here. Before, after. All right. Now we're rocking. So then the next step I do is my dodge and burn. So this was an action I picked up from Julia too. I bought her retouch course a few years back, and I just kind of modified the action to fit my needs. So this one I have set up to do my dodge and burn, and I've got a second layer. So this is what I usually do global, And then on my fashion and beauty work, this is my local. So I'll give you a quick little tease on how that works. And this is a black and white layer, and then this layer here was actually a copy of that, but I use this for my color grading. So that just pops up in there because it's part of the dodge and burn process. So on dodging and burning, I start with the eyes. And again, I'm using the same brush, 80%, flows about 3%. I'm just going to kind of start in the middle and then work my way out slightly. So you see that? That's about all I do. You don't want to paint in the whole eye because then it's just gonna look goofy. It's gonna look silly. So like the eye it's round, so this part's gonna be closer to the light, so naturally it's gonna be brighter, so you can see where it darkens off. So that's the purpose of me starting in the center and working my way out for a dodge. Now on this side, I'm gonna do a little bit more because I feel like you missed the convergence. So it's dark here. I'm gonna lighten that up some. And then again, I'm gonna start in the middle, work my way out. And I kind of do a couple trips. So then you can kind of see what I'm doing with the dodge and burn. There we go. So and then since I've got this extra layer here, even though I do that for my local, I could use another layer of lightning. So again, I'm starting in the middle and bring it out. So, and then, so once I do the eyes, as you hit the forehead a little bit, hit the nose, slight hit on the cheeks, slight hit on the teeth, and then I'll do like the middle of the lips. With the lips, it's the same thing with the eyes. You kind of want to add depth, so I'll dodge in the middle, and then sometimes I'll burn on the edges. So that's my mask. And to get this mask, you just hit Alt, hold down the Alt button, and then tap your brighten. So, and then I'll probably hit the hair a little bit with the dodge just to give it some pop. This is just a habit I have from when I used to do a lot of the fashion and beauty work. I'd always bring out the hair color by dodging it, making it pop. So, and women love their hair to look good, so it's always a winner with that. And then I'll do a little burn on the eyebrows. This burn layer, this is also, so like if you go too far in the color, you know, you can dodge it in a little bit. So, and what you're doing with dodging and burning, you're essentially, let's see, how do I put this? You're accentuating the light and shadows that's already there from the image. So, you know, like these are dark, so I'm just going to darken a little bit more. Around here is shadow from the light fall off, so I'm going to darken a little bit more. Then here, you know, it's close to the camera, so that's going to be bright. Same with their cheeks. So when you do that, you're essentially just adding more depth to the image. So dark, dark. All right. I feel like this is looking pretty good. Boom, before. after. All right, so real quick too, so this temporary layer is to help with local dodge and burn. So this is probably going to take it further than what I would do for headshots. So you see all these dark spots? I would just go in and lighten them. So, and doing this this black and white layer, that lets you see these spots a lot easier. So I'm just going to do a little bit just to show you. So, and again, you want to use your brush about the same area, same size of the area you're going to dodge or burn in. So I'll clean up the nose a little bit. So there's a hot spot, so I'm going to darken it a little bit. And there's a bright spot. And so with this temporary layer, also, if you go to your properties, if you take your red channel, slide it, you can see it brings out different different places where you need to dodge and burn. My buddy who showed me that part, he said it a lot more eloquent. But you know, if you go darker, you can kind of see, you know, spots you need to dodge or burn. So, but that goes off. So if you look here, let me turn it off and on, and you can see where I went too far. See, here's a dark spot, but I went too far. So what you can do is bring that opacity down. See? Boom. But I don't want to do all that. I don't want that in the final image for you. So I'm just going to erase this shit. All right. So I believe we're good. Save it. Round trip it back to Capture One. And here we are. So straight out of camera, retouch. And then I have a curve that I use that I set up for headshots. And again, that just kind of gives a little pop, a contrast. Which, you know, splitting hairs, whatever. I'll bring the shadows up just a bit more. Don't need to do nothing there. Don't need to do nothing there. All right. Then I'm going to do my crop. Excuse me. It's a little tight. Let's see, here's your color. Oh, that's what I need to do. Let me take this off. So here's what I do. This is what I did on my last high key, and then I do this on my darker work too. So I create a new layer. Use my brush tool. Make sure its opacity is at flow, opacity is at 100. And I hit a dot. And I'm going to show on a mask. I'm going to go to the corner and hold down shift and hit the corner. While holding down shift, I'm going to hit the corner. Fill. Refine edge. Apply. And then I go through and erase this. And actually, Robert, our wingmate, showed me this. I didn't realize I could do this. You can use this display gray mask. You can kind of see where your mask is a lot better. So, I mean, off the bat, that's a pretty damn good looking mask. Works a lot better in here than in Photoshop, in my opinion, for this. Oh, I'll take that off. So now what I do is take my pointer and I go around the image and I bring this up to 255. So we'll start there. And you want to do just enough. 0.25. You just kind of go around the image, and these numbers right here, well, you can see them right here, the 255 across the board. You just want to make sure that it's reading that all the way around. See the difference? Boom. So there's that. Then I go to crop. Bring it down this way a little bit. Boom. Alrighty, hope this helps.